All right. Here, James. All right, guys. What I would like to start with this afternoon is something a little bit more advanced about the whole smart object type thing. I need to make sure that everybody is good in understanding what's going on there. So let me just check and see if I can't find a file in here really quickly that we can do a little bit of work with. This is week 4. Sorry. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and open up the Bruce Fraser Castle one that you turned in for homework. Do you guys still have access to that? So the Castle thing that you turned in I want to say last week, a few days ago. Yeah, does everybody have a copy of that they can open up? Okay, and so you can see here, again, it's still the same reprocess smart object thing. That whole part is actually working well for me. I want to duplicate this file, so simply come up to the edit menu. Again, the image menu, and come down exactly what we said before, and we're actually going to duplicate this file. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. I'm going to select the very top. I'm just working on a copy of this. I'm going to select the very top image, the one that's at the very, very, very top of this guy, and I'm going to do the same thing that I've done before. I want a merge stamp version, merge stamp version of this. So Command Option Shift and the letter E, and it makes a new version of this. And you can see that the new version of this that's made is not a smart object. It doesn't have that little guy down here in the corner. It doesn't have that little icon down here. Everything else in here is a smart object, but not this guy, not anymore. And it's because we had to take all of that information. Remember, smart objects are like envelopes. They're protected. And so, in order to do this, it had to pull all the information out of here, it had to use all the masking information, whatever, and it then creates this composite part. But this composite in itself is not a smart object right now. All the stuff underlying is, but this guy is not. Does that make sense, everyone? However, you can make it a smart object. So I need to make sure you guys have got this set up correctly first. If you've got tabbed operation on, we need to turn it off just for today. If you want to continue to use tabs, that's fine, but this is going to get confusing if you use tabs for the next thing I want to show you here. So again, let's temporarily turn it off. It's up to the Photoshop menu, down to Preferences. Let's go to General. I don't ever remember where this actually is. Down to Interface. Down to Workspace. This is where it is. It's these two things I want you to uncheck. Uncheck Open Documents as Tabs, and uncheck Enable Floating Document Window Docking. Those are the two things that basically determine tabbed behavior. And the reason I want to do that is that I want you to see exactly what's going on here. As a matter of fact, we don't need a duplicate of this image, so you can throw away the one that doesn't have that copy on it. So just close it up. You don't need to save it. I only need one image out of here. So whatever it is, just one image that's got the merge layer sitting on top. Is everybody good with that part? Okay, so the thing is, you can actually turn this thing into a smart object. So to do that, you actually come up to the layer menu, down to Smart Objects, and you say Convert to Smart Object. And now it looks like all the other ones. It's got a little, it's that little symbol is sitting here in the lower lower right-hand corner, saying that this is a smart object. However, this is different. Now, smart objects work the same for what's going on here. It's always a container. You just need to always think about it as a container. It is an envelope that is protected. Yes?
So, how do you get it? How do you get that to duplicate? Wow, and like put a layer below.
Okay, so I'll go back to the beginning and show you. So let me just pitch this guy away. So select your very top layer. Got it active and highlighted?
Yeah.
Yep. Hold down the Command key, the Option key, the Shift key, and hit the letter E. It does a merge stamp version of everything that's visible. Actually, if you guys have done this, throw that merge stamp away really quickly. I just want to make sure everybody understands this process. Throw that guy away really quickly. And how do I get it to do?
How do you get it to open? How do you get that window to open up? Like copy? Because mine just adds something to
We don't need to duplicate this guy. Don't worry about it. We're not making a copy of this guy anymore. There's no reason. Because I'm not going to worry about this file. Okay, so did that work?
I mean, this is the original. And
Right.
This is like the duplicate layer.
No, there is no duplicate panel. You just duplicated this information into this guy right here. You can come up to your window menu and check to see, and you've only got one image open down here. You don't have a duplicate image. Does that make sense? No, you don't. You don't. Sorry, that was misleading. I shouldn't have gone down that road. Okay, so this is what I want to do really quickly. Do me a favor, guys. Turn the eye. Let's see, what can I do here? Turn this eyeball off. Yeah, go ahead and turn the very, let's not do that. Let's turn the bottom off. Oh, this will work. Let's do this. Turn the very bottom layer off. Select the very top one again. And again, do that same keyboard shortcut for me. So everybody's got this image, right? The bottom one's off, the grass is off. So the grass has disappeared. Turn the eyeball and the grass off. You good on that, Sarah?
I don't have the cast in mind.
Don't worry about it. You don't need the cast. So just turn the grass off. You got more than one image here. Come up to the window. Let's do this, guys. Let's do it. Close this whole thing up. I want you to close every Photoshop file you've got open. Just close it. It's going to take us 4 hours to just get back to actually have it. So I'm going to close mine too. Don't save anything. You don't need to save anything. So find your copy of this file and just open it. I want just one single file. Does everybody have this? We good? Turn off the bottom layer, the grass. Just turn off the eyeball, and you should have something that's just floating. You should have transparency down here. So the way Photoshop illustrates transparency is this checkerboard. This is an indication that this is a transparent area down here. Everybody good on that? If you then come up to the very top layer, go ahead and make the top layer active and do the keyboard shortcut. Command, Option, Shift, and the letter E. You'll see what it does. It only merges the stuff that was visible. So I've got this copy that's sitting up here on top, but the reason the grass doesn't exist is because it was not turned on when I did that merge. So this is a merge stamp visible. It's everything that's visible. If you don't want something included in this layer when you're doing this routine, just turn its eyeball off. You can turn it right back on, but if we wanted to say, okay, I want something that's only got the sky and the castle in it and it does not have the grass in it at all, whatever, you can do this and then you've got this copy and you can do some other work on this guy. Does that sort of make sense? Okay, if you've done that, you can throw this guy away, turn the grass back on. Again, make sure that you've got the top layer is selected, Command, Option, Shift, and the letter E, and it will give you a merge stamp version of all those up here at the very top. The problem is up here at the very top is the same thing that we had before. If I go to do anything on this, it's not protected. It's not a smart object. So I want everybody to turn the eyeballs off on everything underneath. A quick way of doing this is you can click on the eyeball like I just did. I'm going to click on it again. Click on the eyeball and simply drag down, and it will allow you to, it'll run you down through all the eyeballs, and it'll turn everybody off except for the eyeball and the one that's at the very top. And if we turn the eyeball off on the very top one, you have no screen. But so anyway, I just want to make sure that everything underneath is gone so you don't see it. Is everybody good with this part? Okay, so with the top image selected, we are going to do a transform on this guy. So the easiest transform for me is Command T. If you can't remember it, it's up to the edit menu down to transform. But again, free transform. But again, Command T is just the easiest way to do it. Click on the link between width and height. Just that way when you change one of these numbers, it will actually change. And again, we're going to change the value of this to 5%. So type in 5. You'll see that there's still control handles around this image. If you hit the enter key or your return key once, it simply enters that value up in the top, but it does not apply the transform. You have to hit the enter key second time to actually apply it, or click on the checkbox that's up at the very top. We just made a really small copy of this image. Everybody good on that? Now, I'm not going to use undo or history to go back. I want to show you destructive transforming. So, Command T again, the very same thing. Click on the link between width and height, and the value you want to type in here for one of them, either one, it doesn't matter, is 2,000. And again, the reason I'm doing 2,000 is that when I went from 100% down to 5%, it was a reduction of 20 times. I'm now coming back up that same enlargement, so at 100%, 20 times is 2,000. That's where I get the number. And you'll see that the image is supposed to be exactly, it's resizing the exact way it's supposed to. Hit the check mark to actually go ahead, and you can see that your image has been absolutely fucked up. Again, that is a problem, especially when you get into doing serious compositing work and you're trying to match perspective and things like that. You'll end up rescaling an image over and over and over again, and every one of those rescalings is destructive. There's other things. It gets even worse when you get into liquefying and puppet warping and all that kind of stuff, whatever. It's devastating to your image. So this is not acceptable to us and not a way for us to actually work. So if you've done all this, I want you to go back in your history. If you go back 2 steps to stamp visible, it'll go back to where the image was when we actually had it here, when we just made the merge part. Your hopefully the eyeballs on the one underneath are all still out. Is everybody sort of back at this point? Okay, we're going to do the same trick, but first we are going to turn this into a smart object. So up to the layer menu, down to smart object to convert to smart object. You'll notice that we get the little icon that's sitting down at the very bottom. And now we're going to do the exact same thing. Command T to bring up the transform dialog box. Click on the link between width and height. Type in 5 for 5%. Again, you can just hit the check mark at the top and it'll go ahead and supply that. If you hit Command T again, you will notice that 5% stayed in the dialog box, in the options box that's up along the top. The reason it stayed up here is, again, what Photoshop is doing with a smart object, it is saying, okay, the image that is inside this envelope, so I'm going to take my image, and I'm going to put it inside this envelope. This envelope is my smart object. And as long as this thing is inside of here, it's protected. What it's doing with this being a smart object, it's saying when I do these transforms, it's just giving me the illusion of what this looks like. The image inside has not been affected at all. The image inside is completely protected. You just have the illusion that it is now 20 times smaller. Does that make sense, everyone? But Photoshop remembers that, and that's why this 5% is still in there. So when I go back up to scaling, we're going to, instead of doing 2,000 in here, we simply go back to our 100%. And again, click on the link between width and height and do the check mark. You can see that our image didn't suffer any degradation at all. It's perfect because, again, the smart object protected this guy. Is everybody good on that part? But here's the tricky part about it. If you double click on this smart object, what ends up happening is you get a second copy of this file, and it's sitting here with a lone layer. And so this is why I wanted you to turn off your tab behavior. You can pull these things apart. What I just did was I just pulled this image out. So my original image that has the smart object is sitting here. I just pulled this image out, and this thing is now editable for me. I can actually edit this image. So to show you what that means, I want you to turn this into a black and white. So we're going to add a black and white adjustment layer on the bottom. So simply come up and click on black and white. It turns the whole thing black and white. Now I'm going to close this file, and it's going to say, do you want to save it? Go ahead, yes, you do want to save this file. And what I have now done is I've pulled this image out. I made it a black and white. Now I've just put it back in the smart object, and it is now in this file here as a smart object protected. Does that make sense? But again, this is very different than having your raw data inside here. The smart objects are the same. It's just the original place we started down here has copies of your raw data in it. This doesn't. This has now got a copy of a baked image in it, and it looks like this. Does that make sense, what's going on here? So if you double click on the smart object again to open it up, you'll see that you can turn this back off. You can turn the adjustment layer off, close this guy up, save it, and you'll see that it's gone back the way it was. Does that make sense? Again, what I just did was when I double-clicked on it, I pulled the image out, I turned off the black and white adjustment layer, and when I saved it, I put it back in the smart object, and it actually protected it. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, this is going to get a little confusing here, so hang on. Double-click on this image really quickly. Again, we just pulled that image out of the smart object. That's why I've got 2 copies of this. And this is why tab behavior becomes really difficult when you're doing this kind of work, because essentially they look like the same image, but they're not. Does that make sense, everyone? We're doing this? All right, we are going to transform this guy. Command-T. You can throw away the black and white adjustment layer. Command-T to bring up the transform dialog box. Go ahead and click on the chain link between the width and the height. Type in 5%. Go ahead and say OK to that. Close it. Sorry, close it up. Go ahead and save it. And it makes for a really, really small image. Right? Double click on the smart object again. It opens up again. Command-T to transform this guy again. We're going to do the same trick. Click on the length between width and height. Click across the percentage here, put in 2000. Go ahead and click on the checkbox. Close the image up and save it. And you can see we're back to that same original problem. That what happened was when I pulled this image out of its protected envelope and transformed it outside of its protection, it fucked it up. And then when I put it back inside its protection, it doesn't matter. It's already screwed up. Does that make sense, everybody? Are we following this? Is everybody good on this part? So we need to go back in history to undo all of that damage. So look at your history palette. And where you want to get back to is all this updating smart object stuff. You want to come back to the last of the free transforms and see what that guy looks like. And we should be fine there. So I've gotten rid of 4 steps of updating smart objects, and I'm back to sort of where this image was to begin with. Is everybody good on that part? So you've got your images stored back again? Double click on this to pull the image out. So now what I just did, again, I just pulled this image out so that I can edit this. It's not protected. It's sitting right here. There's no little icon on that guy. It's not protected. I can destroy it, but to protect it, I'm going to turn it into a smart object. So up to the layer menu, down to smart objects, convert to smart object. You'll see that now I do have that little dialog that's around it, the little icon in the lower right-hand corner, and I'm going to now do again, transform, Command-T to transform this. Click on the length between width and height, click on the percentage, put in 5%, click on the OK button, the check mark, go ahead and close this up and save it. And you can see it's made for a really small image again. Double click on this smart object, And then because this thing is also a smart object, my transforms are non-destructive. So Command T to open this up. You can take this back to now 100%. Click on the chain link between width and height and say OK. Close this guy up, save it, and it is a non-destructive transform. So what just happened? This is what happened. I had my original image. It was in the smart object, and it was safe. And as long as I did transforms on this, it was safe. When I pulled it out, this guy became vulnerable. And when I changed it, it fucked it all up. But then I actually made this a smart object, which put it into this envelope. When I saved that, it went back into this smart object. You have nested smart objects. Does that make sense what's going on? So it is a way to continue to protect and to protect and to protect. Now the reason this becomes important to us is this. You can throw away this top layer. We don't need it any longer. Turn on your three guys right here one more time. I'm going to click on the very top one, and I'm actually going to make it, we're going to do a couple of things to this. First thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and make it black and white. So I'm going to add a black and white layer to this guy. So it adds, we've got a now black and white adjustment layer on here. And then let's do another thing. I mean, not that it needs it. I just want to demonstrate to you guys what's really going on here. Let's add another curve on top of here. And let's just boost a little more contrast in here. So we'll make it really even darker and moodier in contrast here. And so that's basically the image that I want to work with, right? Everybody good on this part? Select all of your layers. To do that, select the very top one to make it active. Scroll down to the bottom, hold down the Shift key and click. We've now selected all 5 layers. If you actually if you hover over the link between properties and your layers palette, you can actually goose this up, and you can see I've highlighted all 5 of these guys, right? Up to the layer menu, down to Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object. It rolls all of that inside of this. Now I've got multiple nested smart objects, but now I'm working on a single connected file. Does that make sense? What's going on here? These ultimately can get nested deeper and deeper and deeper, but in the fundamental original part of it all, I can go back deep enough in here to get to my raw data. Does that all make sense to you guys? What's sort of like going on here? So I just need you to think of smart objects as containers. They can hold raw data, but it doesn't have to. It can also hold baked data. We good on this part? All right. You can close all of that up. If it doesn't make any sense at all to you while we've done this so far right now, when we get into the compositing work, this is going to start playing a big role. Because in the compositing work, what you're doing is you're trying to take an image and bring it into it, and you're trying to put in multiple images together, is basically what you're trying to do. And in most cases, when you do that, they are separate when you begin with them, and then you put them together, and you still want to have maximum ability to edit that stuff. And in doing these smart object setups like this, if I were to bring this file into another file, I bring everything with it, but it's on a single layer. But everything, if I need to go back in and like, oh my God, that was a mistake, it shouldn't be black and white, I can go back in here and undo it, but all of that information is carried with me all along the way. I didn't make a black and white layer and then burn it and make it a permanent layer. Does that sort of make? I didn't bake that layer. Are we good on this? Okay. You can close all of that up. We can get rid of that. So this is the point where you need to suspend all belief about what you've been told. What's the best selection tool in all of Photoshop? Number 1. Hands down, no exception.
Magic wand.
That's fine. I like that though. That was cute. Anybody have a second?
Is it a pen tool?
It is. It's the pen tool. And that's what we're going to actually deal with today. So how many people in this room use the pen tool? It is your bitch. It's you mastered it, you know everything about it, and so there's nothing else to worry about other than Jane.
Are you doing Illustrator?
Okay, well then you've got a head start because you understand curves. Yeah. So, but any of the rest of you guys, yes, no, okay. And the reason, yeah, once. That's what everybody does, and it's like the first time you use it, and you're like, this is horrible. I am never using this tool again, whatever. It's complicated, it's complex, whatever. It's a nightmare, it's awful. So I am going to teach you how to use the pen tool the right way, and I'm going to make it hopefully simple for you to use, because I will tell you this, without exception, it is the best selection tool that there is, because you can determine where the edge always is. And software has gotten really sophisticated. The Select and Nest workspace is pretty sophisticated. There's sophisticated things. The process that we just did, trying to build masks using channels, that's also a relatively sophisticated thing, whatever. However, at the end of the day, you run into situations that are simply impossible. There are things where you can see. So for instance, if Elise were to stand up right next to that wall, her white shirt would be on a white wall, and it becomes virtually impossible to separate that no matter what you do. Using those same methods, using the select and mask, or using quick selection, or using the magic wand, it just becomes impossible to do. You can see it. So you can see the black edges, the darker edges, where you're getting the wraparound. You can see all of that, whatever, but getting software to recognize that is incredibly difficult to do, and that's where the pen tool comes in. One of the things I will tell you before we get started on the pen tool, though, is that this is not something to do with a tablet. So if you've ever got a tablet, once we get these tablets working, you don't want to do pen tool work with a tablet. The reason you don't want to do it is this. We need to set very precise points on the edge. So what happens with a tablet is you hover over the tablet like this, and you get the point exactly where you want it, and then you drop the stylus down to the tablet, and your point moves. So with a mouse or a trackpad like this, you hover over it, and you simply click down, and it'll put the point precisely where it needs to be. It's actually better if you've got an old mouse. It's actually better to do this work with a mouse than it is a trackpad. Trackpad's more difficult. A mouse, surprisingly enough, for pen work is the tool everybody uses. So I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm also going to tell you this, because there's another side to this that you need to know. There are factories in India that do nothing but path work. That's all they do. People send them their files. You could do it. I'll never know. They charge 9 cents an hour, and they are factories full of thousands of people. I swear to God, thousands of people doing nothing but building paths. That's all they do. It's that important in the industry. Path and pen tool. So when you do a pen tool, when you draw something, that's a path. 9 cents an hour. That's what retouching in India is for everything. Yeah, no, amazing, right?
9 cents.
9 pennies an hour. Say what? Yeah, there you go. So at any rate, I'm just trying to stress the importance of this. If you're a car shooter, did somebody in here say they were into shooting cars? Did I hear that? Is that something? I've had people in here before, whatever. If you're a car shooter, whatever, anyway, I'm not a car whore. I like nice cars. I like interesting cars. I like to go fast. What's the fastest you've ever driven?
I thought you said carts.
Oh, no car. Car driving, whatever. I did 170 miles an hour on a highway in Italy in a Mercedes. It was insane. The car couldn't go faster. I mean, it was like about 170 miles an hour. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so we're going to learn how to use the pen tool. I'm going to teach you guys how to do it right. Again, so the file that we are looking for now will be in our class number 4 today. Student files. There's a file in here called Viacom Path TIFF. I want you to bring that into Photoshop. If you just double click on it and it actually opens up, well, when you guys double clicked on it, did it open up in Photoshop or did it open up in Preview? Okay, so I need everybody to go, if you've done this, cancel this, go back. If you want to change that behavior, this is how you change it. So click on the Viacom path once simply to select it. Hit Command-I or go up to the info, go up to the file menu and come down to Get Info. It's the very same thing. And in the scroll down box down here, sort of at the bottom of that info palette, you can click Open With, and you can pick any application that will open that file. And you want to pick Photoshop. Let's go on. If you want it to open in Photoshop, that's what you would pick. And once you pick this Open with Photoshop, you need to click the button right underneath it that says Change All, and this will change the behavior for everything. So every other tip from now on, if you double click on it, it'll open directly in Photoshop. If you want to get it back to opening in Preview, you simply go backwards and you do the same thing and you pick Preview instead. Okay, so but for me, Viacom. I'm opening it up. How many people in this room did not get this warning box? Anyone? Did it? Everybody got it? Good. You're supposed to. This is an indication that your color settings are set up correctly. This file has been saved in an sRGB, which is a much smaller color space. It's okay. We're still going to work with the file. But it's just saying, okay, you know that your working space is Adobe RGB, so this is a good sign that this is actually happening. Go ahead and say okay, and we're going to open this guy up. Once you get this thing opened up, hold down the space bar in the command and simply click on the V. You'll actually, it just gives you the move tool, the magnifying glass tool, and it comes in like this. Now, I have a couple of guides on here. Yes?
My warning said it was in
Remind us if I want to assign it, or to
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter. You can
That's
actually, you can leave it as it is. You don't have to assign it. It won't matter.
So that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Probably should have gone through all that. This is actually, you'll see that there's a couple of these little sort of, do you guys have the purple lines on yours like I have on mine? No. Cyan, it's a different color, whatever. All those are guides. So if you want to show guides or hide guides, because guides are only, they're non-printing characters. So they're just to help me lay stuff out. That's all they do, right? They don't print, you don't see them. If you want to get rid of them, and this is going to, half of you guys are going to get another dialog box that comes up, and so I just want to point this out. That's a good thing. If you hold down your command key and hit H, in my case, those things disappear. In your case, you get this dialog box that comes up, and it's giving you an option, and it's saying, do you want to cancel this, or do you want to hide Photoshop, or do you want to hide extras? You didn't get that dialog box.
No, my Photoshop just like in Pixel.
It's what?
Like all of my Photoshop just like.
Oh, yeah, because it's already set up wrong. So you and I, during the break, I can reset that for you. So if you set it up, if you got this dialog box before and you said, I want to hide Photoshop, what Command H does is it hides this whole program. It's just like going up here and saying, I want to hide Photoshop right here. That's all it is. And so it goes, all Photoshop goes away. That's a little to no help to anyone, right? Because it's just as easy to do the menu item like that, and very few people hide shit that they're working in anyway. So, but the hide extras is critical because the hide extras will hide guidelines like this. It will also, if you hit Command H, so I want all of you guys to say hide extras. And now, just do me a favor. Just grab the marquee tool, the M key, and just drag out, and you get the marching ants. Marching ants are extras. If you hit Command H, they're hidden. However, if you hit Command H again, it all comes back again. So how many of you guys have ever made a selection that you want to actually fill or to paint with or to work with a selection, but the marching ants are in your way? You're trying to clone stuff or you're trying to heal stuff and you can't see it because there are these marching ants that are on top of it. You use Command H, it gets rid of the marching ants, but they're still there. The selection is still active and it's still being made. So it's still restricting where you're actually cloning or doing anything else, but it's not in your way. You don't see it. Does that sort of make sense? Command D to deselect, Command H to get rid of the guidelines if you have them, and now we're going to go after the pen tool. Guys, we should be able to get through the majority of this by 2:30, and then we'll actually come back here and do some serious work with it. So hang in there. I haven't forgotten. I won't go over like we did this morning. Okay, so to use the pen tool, it's my mission to make this the simplest thing that I can actually do for you guys so that it'll actually work for you. What I'm getting ready to show you now, there's a PDF that's on our website. It's going to be under the resources for our session number 4 today. It's actually a recipe that comes from a Photoshop book that's probably 30 years old. And it's an art form that's actually been lost. It goes that far back. And when I found it and I realized what it did, I was just stunned. Because it really does make the pen tool accessible. And so it's going to be accessible for you guys. But there's a couple of tricks to it, so I'm going to show you what all of that is, and then, like I say, then we're going to spend a good part of what happens after the break, whatever, actually using it. And you'll be happy to know part of it's your homework, so yay. All right, so here we go. To select the pen tool, it's over here in the keyboard stuff. It's actually, the shortcut for it is P, that stands for pen tool, but it's also this thing over here that's supposed to look like a pen. Like a pen nib. It's the head of it all. It comes right underneath the dodge tool, right above the type tool. So it's that little guy right there. If you click on the drop-down menu of this thing, you will actually see, you get a flyout menu, and in the flyout menu at the top it says pen tool, then freeform pen tool, curvature pen tool, add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert point. Now, I would say right off the bat that that is so fucking confusing, there is no way I'm ever going to learn this tool, so let's just call it a day and I'll go out. No. So here's the deal I'm going to make with you. You are never going to use the convert point. You're never going to use the delete anchor point. You're never going to use the add anchor point. You're never going to use the curvature pen tool. You're never going to use the freeform pen tool. You're only going to use the pen tool. How's that? Couldn't make it easier for you, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options. I just knocked 85% of this tool's pain in the ass confusion out of the game for you. You're only ever going to use the pen tool. We're already off to a good start, right? Okay. So that's the first thing you want to select, and you really don't ever have to select anything else in that little drop-down dialog box. Remember I told you that before, whenever you do this, the options bar at the very top of Photoshop changes. It's changed again. This is actually how you configure the pen tool, and this is what I want you to do. The first thing in this drop-down menu is you need to make sure that path is what is selected. Now, unless you've selected something else previously, path will be always there selected. If you select shape for some reason, that menu is sticky. So every time you go to the pen tool, it's going to go back to whatever this thing last was. There's no reason for us to be doing shapes in this way, at least in my opinion. So anyway, I just want to make sure that you have path selected. And then in these options that exist over here, you're going to ignore all of these first ones right here, and you want to come to the little gear. If you click on the little gear, you'll get a drop-down menu, and it used to be the only thing that was in this little gear ever was the rubber band. You do want to enable the rubber band. I'll show you what the rubber band is in just a second. But also, when we draw this path out, and this is new for now, so for the people like, yeah, Jose, for yours, you're not going to see this. You will have a rubber band tool, but you won't have any of this other stuff. For everybody else, by default, it's actually just a color blue with a thickness of 1 pixel. You can leave it at the default. The only reason you have options here to change this would be, again, if you were working on a primarily blue image, blue line gets to be very hard to see on a blue. Again, this is just going to show you where your path is actually going. It's non-printing, it doesn't have anything, but it's just a way to visualize it, to see it. So again, if this was a big blue image, whatever, I would change that drop-down menu to a different color. There is no reason, in my opinion, to actually get to a thicker line part here. The thinner the line is, the more precise it is. However, if you're struggling seeing that line, if you can't see where you're drawing the path, whatever, make it bigger, and you'll at least be able to see it a little bit better. Make sense, everyone? So in my case, I'm going to leave it set up like this, but you definitely want to make sure that you have the rubber band tool selected. Again, I'll show you what it is in just a second. And then finally, this auto add and delete, you want to check that.
Mine is older and it only has a rubber band thing, but my color's already black. And I changed the color.
Yes, you actually can change the color. You have to do it in your preferences. Although black is fine, it won't be bad, but...
I mean, yeah, that's
Okay, and if you hate it when we go through this exercise right now, we'll change it during the break. Oh, to go back, because what I'm going to do for Katia is if for some reason you pick hide Photoshop instead of hide extras, you need to reset your Photoshop preferences. Have we talked about that in this class yet? All right. We definitely need to know how to do that, and we'll get to that before the end of the day. Okay, so with everything set up the way it is right now, again, for me, the way I like to work is I like to break my work down into segments where I can, because again, the more zoomed we are, the more accurate we can actually be about this. So again, I'm going to hold down the command and the space bar and click to zoom in just a little bit more. If you hold down just the space bar, you get the hand and you can actually move this image. So I've got a really big D here. And there you go. This is how I'm going to start. So I want you guys to watch what I do, and then I'm going to actually ask you to do it, okay? Yes?
So I know, most people have the traditional pen tip.
Yes.
So it's like
Oh, and you've got something that looks like a little pen?
yeah, well, I think that's
Show me
the
what you have.
default. Oh, I have the precision
Oh, okay.
tip, but I feel like, isn't it defaulted to...
Oh, it is. So has everybody got like something that looks like a pen?
Yeah.
Oh, we changed that day one. Because you'll see I don't have that. So to change that, thanks for pointing that out, up to the Photoshop menu, down to Preferences, down to Cursors. You want to enable this, Other Cursors, Precision, not Standard. You don't care about something that looks like a little pen. You care about a cross mark that is exactly where you're going to actually be working on this image. Why on earth is that the default? I mean, does Photoshop really think that the majority of the people that are working this are like 6th grade children? Oh well. At any rate, so now you should have something that just is crosshair. Everybody got that part? Okay, so here, watch this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to come up here to the juncture right between these two lines right here, and I'm simply going to click once and let go. And you can see it just put down a little dot. If I come away from that, you will see that I've actually got a line that's connected. Now, I haven't clicked again. I've just got this line. This is actually the rubber band line. If I turn that off in my preview menu up here, if in the little gear I turn that off, you'll see I don't have it anymore. The reason you want to use that is it really is it's a visual aid to help you line stuff up. So that's why the rubber band becomes really important and why I always leave it on. I'm going to come down here to the very bottom, at the bottom of the V, and I'm going to click once again. And I've got 2 points now. I'm going to come up to the top at the juncture that's right up here, click one more time, come across to the top up here. So I'm just clicking, letting go of my mouse, so you guys can go ahead and start this process and see how it goes. And then I'm going to complete the V. I'll give you a shout out when I get up to complete this guy. When I get back to my original point, in spite of the fact that I hate those little picture icon things, whatever, it turns into a pin thing with a little circle right next to it, and this is telling me that I'm going to close the path. This is telling me that I'm completing the path. And if you go ahead and click on that, you will have a path that's actually selected. Everybody got this? Did it work for you? Relatively simple to do. If you hold down the space bar, you temporarily get the hand. You can drag your image across to get the eye lined up and do the exact same thing again. I'm going to click up at the very top. I'm going to come down to the next corner down here. Click again, come across, click again, up here. And when I come across again, I get a completed path, and it looks like that. So you did what now? Click on path. Yeah, so in this case, go back in history to where you created the path. Go ahead and click on that right there. Click on that history. So this is now your entire path. Okay, and then actually click on this file menu one more time. Let's see one last thing. Yeah, I think that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay, then come back over here and just click and do one more point right there. Just click start again. Click one at the very top one. Just click. I think you're still looking. Yeah, you're still there. You're good. You're talking about the little points went away? Yeah, it's fine. My little points went away too. I don't have little points up here. I can come back to it, but I don't have little points up here. Okay, did this work for everybody so far? Okay, there's a couple of ways that we can tweak our path. So you'll notice that this corner right up here is not perfect for me. This didn't quite work. It didn't quite get this guy right here. I can adjust this after the fact. So to adjust it, it's not the pen tool that does it. It's these tools over here. If you look right under the T key, there's two arrows. There is this one right now, and again, these are sticky. It's whatever one you have picked last. I had the white arrow picked last. If you click on this drop-down menu, you'll see that there's two possibilities here. One is the path selection tool. The other is the direct selection tool. Go ahead and select the path selection tool first. Everybody got that? Come over to your eye and simply click on the path, and you'll notice that all of the points of the path are actually selected. So what the black-headed arrow does is it selects the entire path. And you can move paths. You can actually click this path and you can actually drag it and it moves the entire thing. It changes the entire thing. If you've done that, hit Command Z to undo this. And instead what you want to click on is the direct selection tool. It's the other one. It's the white-headed arrow. And then you want to come up, and in my case, I just want to change this one point. If your points are perfect, you don't have to change anything, but you can see what this does. So it's this point that's off right here. I'm going to come up and simply click on that point. And what you'll see now happens is this. All of our points have come back on again. However, there's only one of them that's opaque. This is telling me that this guy is active. These ones that have got holes in them, or that are, they're not solid blue, the ones that are open like this, they're actually anchored in place. They're not going to move. The only one that's going to move is this guy right here. So I can take that point and I can actually come up here and click, and I can move this guy to actually get it better aligned. And then simply click outside the path and I'm good to go. Does that make sense? So there are people who do this. So I'm going to give you two things that you need to think about when you're actually working with this tool, and we're sort of like moving through this. The first thing is that there are people who go in here and do really sloppy path work at the beginning. They just want to hit it really quick. They go through, they don't really want to stay on the lines, they're just trying to lay down as many points as they can quickly. And then they go back in with this tool and they finesse everything. They move everything into exactly where it should be. I think that that's idiocy, because that means you've got to go through the path twice. So for me, I am really particular about how my path gets laid out when I draw it initially. If you make a mistake, this is the biggie right here, do not try to get rid of your point. Don't try to convert it, don't try to change it, don't try to delete it, don't try to do any of that shit. Go back in history. Go to your history palette and just step back before the mistake happened, and then pick your path up from that point and do it correctly. If you get into trying to do all of these changes and connections and erase and all that kind of stuff, it's one of two things that makes this tool impossible to work with. So simply go back in history. So let's say, for instance, that what I just did, I realized was a mistake. All I need to do is go back in history, or here, we'll get to another path right here, and I'll actually show you what I mean. So again, I'm going to hold down the space bar, I'm going to click and come over to the, what is the A, and I'm going to go back to my pen tool, which is the P key. And I'm going to click down here on the bottom, so I need you guys to go ahead and outline the A as well. And this is what I mean. So take a look at what's going on with my screen right now. I realize now that I've actually made a big mistake. Now, again, I've showed you how you can actually move this point, but sometimes, especially when we get into doing curves, this gets to be a little bit more complex. Instead of trying to then go back and fix this point, which could lay down another line and just confuse and just like fuck all that up, instead I'm simply going to go back in history one step. That's that point, which was the mistake. So then I'm going to go back one more step, and then I just make the mistake. I just make this correct now instead of having the mistake. Does that make sense to everyone?
Didn't you just use delete?
No. I'm telling you now, go back in history, because what happens is it can change points on you, it changes the type of point, and then it just, and if, especially when we get into doing curves, this is not going to have one point anymore, it's going to have 3 for every point that you put down. And it's a nightmare. You just don't want to, again, I'm trying to keep it as simple as I possibly can, and I have used this tool for years, and I've never had to get more complex than what I'm going to show you guys today. All right, so it just keeps it simple, which means you'll use it. Okay, so we can finish this part off, the A off. And come back and click, and we're good to go. Hold down the shift key, the space bar, and we're going to come over to the C. We're going to get through a curve right now. We'll take a break, and we'll come back and pick up on this again, okay? But I want to get through at least this part of it. So I want you guys to watch this. I don't want you to actually do this. Just watch this once. I'm going to undo it all and go back and then do it with you, because it's a little bit tricky how this works. Again, for Carson, I don't know, how much work that you've actually done. This is probably going to be different than the way you actually work with it in Illustrator. I don't know, because I'm not an Illustrator person. So we'll see if you're comfortable and your curving is working the way that you always wanted to. There's no reason that you have got to change and to do this. It's all just about whether you can make the path or not.
I think I already tried it the way that I would have done it in Illustrator. It's pretty
Yeah, it should be pretty similar. So I'm just saying you don't need to change.
Yeah.
But for those of you who do not have experience in this, again, what she goes through and what she has to do is I'm trying to keep this simple for you guys. Okay, so it's going to start here. I'm going to actually start down here at the bottom of the C, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to come up, and I'm going to click just a single point right here. Now, we need to describe this curve, and the thing about the pen tool is that it excels at describing curves. That's what it's really built for. All this like straight line work that we've done, you could do that. There's a selection tool that you could do that just lays down points that will do basically the same thing. There's no real fundamental reason for that. But this tool excels at describing curves. Now, there are some people who would come in here and they would say, well, okay, I see this as one large curve. I'm simply going to put a point down here and try to describe this curve. Do not do that. It's too ambitious. You're actually asking it to do too much. So what we need to do instead of, we need to break this down into usable pieces that we can build this curve on. And in my case, when I look at something like this, I figure I can break this into 3. If you imagine this as a clock face, I'm going to do something right here about 10 o'clock, something right here about 7 o'clock, and then finally this 6 o'clock point back here. Does that sort of make sense? So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to come over here to do my first point, somewhere right around here, and I'm just picking a point. And guys, again, if this doesn't work, if it ends up being too much, if you select too much of an area or whatever, again, if you've made that mistake, use history to go back in time to undo that. Don't try to move the points, change the points, whatever, because this gets complicated. So here's the trick. So what you want to do is bite off the hump that you think you can chew. You want to click, hold your mouse down the entire time. You want to drag in the direction that your path is going to move. And you'll see it's pulling out a set of handles here that allow me to build that, to form to that curve. The longer your handle comes out, the more the curve happens at the original point, up at 12 noon. The shorter your handles are, the more you impact the area that's right next to the point that I just laid down here at 10 o'clock. So what you want to do is simply drag this out, and it's a completely instinctual thing, and let go, and you have described that part of the curve. So next step is where everybody gets into trouble. So when everybody goes to the next step, we've got a problem. And the problem is that if I continue this curve, even though in this example it will actually work perfectly, but in anything else it won't. The problem that I've got right now is that this control handle that I was using to actually form this also becomes a control handle for the next segment. I need to get rid of that control handle. Yes?
I only get one arrow, it doesn't go both ways.
So are you clicking and dragging? That's the part.
Yeah. So like say here.
So go back in history, just undo it. Keep going. Okay, so come here. Yeah, do that point. And come back over here, click and drag down. Click and drag. You still hold your keys.
So just
Click and hold your mouse down and drag. 2 minutes. So that's why I watch this first, guys, and then I'm going to go around and help everybody actually get this part. So I need to get rid of this control handle to continue this. To do that, come back to the point that you were laying down, hold down your Option key and click once, and you get rid of that handle. This is the secret to making the pen tool work, is this guy right here. Because this will work for every other point that you do around this guy. You will be able to do straight line segments, curved line segments. So again, watch what happens for me here. Let me show you this again. I'm going to go ahead and continue mine. I'm down here around this space right here. Click, keep your mouse held down, drag in the direction that you want to actually continue the path till you describe that arc. Let go of your mouse, come back up, hold down your Option key and click once, and you get rid of that handle. And then finally, I'm going to come down here to the bottom, click. In this case, I'm dragging not in the direction because my path was going to want to go straight up to finish this. But you guys get where this is going by now. To describe the path, let go, come back, hold down the Option key, click to get rid of that point. Then you can simply come up and your pen tool is now working the way it worked with the V and the I and the A. Now you don't need to. This is where you would go back and have to change this to build it as a corner point and not whatever. It's just, we're avoiding all of that. It's just this process over and over and over. Again, I got into the wrong spot right here. Command Z to come back so that I get into the correct one. Instead of trying to move that point, I'm going to come roughly to the sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock one on this. Come back, hover over my center point, hold down the Option key, click to get rid of that handle. Come to get this guy right here. And then finish my path. So, I need you guys to do this, and you need to shout out if it's not working for you. Is it working? Have you finished the C? No, yes?
No,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think, I've done the pencil before, but the only difference was that you had to hold down the option. Because like if, in Illustrator, you can just click on the point, you don't have to hold, or maybe it's preset. Like you can just click on the previous point in Illustrator itself.
Oh, yeah, and they've actually adopted some of that information in here. But the problem is that then it just is another element that you have to learn about doing that, whatever. It's just another layer of confusion. And again, I need people to actually be able to do this. And it becomes really quick. So, is everybody else okay on this? Did it work? Are you done?
I'm not done yet, but it's working so far.
Okay, all right. So I have got, let's just call this 2:30 for lack of a better way of putting it. And if you guys can be back at 2:45, that'll be great. We'll actually pick this up and use it in an image. We've still got some more work to do with this file, so don't close it up. If you want to save it, go ahead and save it. It's not part of your homework. You can, but we're going to continue to work with this guy for just a little bit.